The 10-member committee set up by the Electoral Commission to review electoral reform proposals has recommended that presidential and parliamentary elections be held a month earlier on November 7. This, the committee said, will allow enough time for a transition in government in the event there is going to be a change in regimes. This was reviewed on Friday when the committee presented its report to the outgoing chairman, Dr. Kwejua Farijan.
Ghana's presidential and parliamentary elections are held on December 7 every 4 years as stipulated in the 1992 Constitution. The committee therefore acknowledged that although they have proposed a new date, it requires legal backing before it can become law and subsequently implemented. The proposals from the committee are in two forms. One section is to be undertaken by the EC, and the other section requires parliamentary attention. Regarding the issues of overvoting and no verification, no vote, the committee chair pointed out that these two were the major issues which dominated the first ever election petition in 2012. She thus advised that the two must be explicitly defined. The committee further recommended that to prevent voters from being disenfranchised on election day, the EC must accompany the exhibition of the voters' register with biometric verification, which is the practice on voting day. The committee also went beyond its terms of reference and looked at other issues, including what constitutes overvoting and the mantra, no verification, no vote. The committee is confident that if the reforms are implemented to the latter, elections in Ghana will record fewer problems. The committee was inaugurated in January 2015 to review electoral reforms proposals ahead of the 2016 general elections in response to the Supreme Court's directive that the EC must undertake electoral reforms to prevent repetition of the circumstances which led to the 2012 election petition.
The National Commission for Civic Education has taken a swipe at members of Parliament who promised constituents and failed to deliver on their promises. The NCCE says this act by the MPs has made it difficult for the Commission to educate the citizenry on the duties of the various members of Parliament. Deputy Chair of the Commission, Samuel Ekwamwa, was speaking to Joy News on the sidelines of the third NCCE dialogue here in Accra.
You only do the education for MPs to go during campaign period to make promises that they cannot fulfill, and it gets us back to square one. If you tell them these are the traditional rules of the MP, and the MP on the campaign platform gets carried away and talks about other things, between the MP and the NCCE man, whose word should be taken? And if you take party issues, and the supporters, sometimes they become matters of the heart. They do not even become matters of logic. Sometimes they become matters of the heart. So NCC, you are telling us the MP's role is ABC. The MP on the campaign platform has promised ABC, which the NCC didn't mention. So which of them should the constituent take? And at that point, the MP really won the vote. So that's what he will say. They must be conscious and consciously reduce the level of that deviation, of going to make, promises that they themselves cannot fulfill.
The Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Ahmed Al-Hassan, has assured the service will not spare any officer found culpable in recent jailbreaks that have been reported around the country. The most prominent of the incident was when some inmates broke out of the Deno police station in the Volta region. Although most of them have since been recaptured, one other is yet still on the loose. Speaking at a passing out ceremony at the police training school here in Accra, the IGP said investigations are still underway.
The recent incidents of prisoner escapes from our custody arising out of sheer negligence are also attributed to poor supervision on the part of our commanders, NCO, and supervisors, who failed to ensure that the security of our vital installations, including the cells, The armories and exhibit store rooms are constantly checked. We also, as an administration, want to serve notice that all personnel will be found culpable who are found culpable in the ongoing investigations relating to some of these incidents of prisoner escapes will be sanctioned appropriately.
Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police has also warned new constables they will have to prove themselves within their 18-month probation period or be thrown out of the service. Mohammed Al-Hassan was speaking at the passing out ceremony of new recruits who have completed their initial 6-month training here in Accra.
The IGP told the 491 new constables they are expected to exhibit the highest professional standards at all times. He stressed laziness, lack of commitment and disloyalty will not be tolerated.
You are a new breed of policemen and women and must not join the few bad nuts who might have found their way into the system, nor adopt those negative attitudes and practices. The abuse of authority, as I've mentioned, extortion, bribery, corruption, and other forms of unprofessional conduct, I can assure you, will only lead you to the prison or to your dismissal from the service.
Public Affairs Director DSP Cephas Arthur, meanwhile, clarified the graduation should not be misconstrued to mean the beginning of another recruitment process.
The recruitment process are going to go around with words to unsuspecting individuals that, oh, now the police have, those in training have finished, so the police are going to recruit some more. It is not true. People should be wary of such fraudsters and report them promptly to the police. The police are not recruiting now. Presently, there's no recruitment process going on. And the fact that these people are passing out today does not mean that immediately we are recruiting some people to come and replace them. At the appropriate time, when we are ready, we'll go out, we'll come out with the information through the media.
Recruits in other police training schools across the country are expected to graduate by the end of April. The new constables are part of those recruited in 2012, the last time the police enlisted en masse.
President John Dramani Mahama has denied speculations the International Monetary Fund bailout has a conditionality that restrains government from recruiting workers into the public sector. Speaking at the 8th Conference of Public Service Chief Directors, Chief Executives and Chairpersons of Governing Boards and Councils at Koforidua in the Eastern Region, the President denied the claims as false. A report by Haruna Yusuf Wumpeni.
Speaking at the conference, President John Dramani Mahama revealed that government will continue to employ the required number of workers the public sector needs to enhance effective service delivery in the country.
The public service of today cannot be the old colonial public service that we inherited. In playing the critical role of assisting government in the formulation and implementation of national policies and also supporting the development of society, public servants must make the state visible and friendly to the citizens. You therefore must form tangible links between government and the people of this country.
He said the sustainability of the public sector is largely dependent on quality and efficient service delivery, adding the fight against corruption is a collective fight for all public sector workers.
Madam Chair, peer review and gatherings like this is always considered very important to reduce the overbearing bureaucracy in our system. Simple tasks which should facilitate realization of projects to improve our people's lives take years from conceptualization to implementation. I have tracked many projects in many sectors, and it takes typically 2 to 3 to 4 years to be able to bring one project from the time you conceptualize it until the time you implement it and it becomes a service to the people. Excessive fussiness with agreements, store project documents for months. A simple report that should be written by an officer that can be written overnight and presented the next day. It takes months.
The Eastern Regional Minister, Entribue Siaku Setre, contends there is an urgent need to make the public service a sustainable and professional one. The conference organized by the Public Services Commission was on the theme, leading and managing the dynamics of change through the professionalization of the public service. Haruna Yusuf Umponi's report from the Eastern Region.
A new cocoa processing plant has been commissioned in Tema as part of efforts to add value to the country's raw materials. President Mahama, who inaugurated the plant, described its establishment as a boost to government's transformational agenda. The plant pushes Ghana's processing capacity for cocoa beans from 30 to 50%. The Cocoa Teton Processing Company is a subsidiary of French company Teton SA. It signed a bean deal with Cocoa Board early this year, and operations are expected to begin after the commissioning with about 25,000 tons. Patrick de Boussac is CEO of the CTPC.
Just for your information, only 3 billion people ate once a piece of chocolate in their life among a population of 7 billion. Just see the potential of this cocoa market. So, we predict and we forecast higher price for cocoa in the near future. But the question is, how can we succeed and take full advantage of this demand, and in the meantime, how to benefit to the farmers?
President John Mahama says the plant represents another step in government's quest to ensure value is added to the country's raw material.
Our agenda for transformation as a country is kicking in, and I commit to the people of Ghana that I will, as president, continue to focus on working to achieve that which we have set ourselves, that is transforming our economy to become a net exporter of goods rather than an importer. We currently are estimated to be processing about 30% of cocoa beans locally. And the intention is to increase that to at least half of our total production.
Emphasizing the need for cocoa farmers to take advantage of freebies that are available to them, the president said free seedlings are being nursed for distribution, while road projects in cocoa growing areas have also begun.
This year, various programs aimed at improving cocoa yields are being rolled out. In doing this, the premium quality of the Ghanaian cocoa will not be compromised. The programs include the free spraying of cocoa farms against pests and diseases. It also includes the free distribution of fertilizer to cocoa farmers, provision of solid extension services, and the free distribution of hybrid cocoa seedlings to our cherished cocoa farmers. Also, this year, 50 million hybrid cocoa seedlings are being nursed, which will be distributed to cocoa farmers for free. We will continue this program every year in order that we are able to provide enough seedlings to our farmers. And let me emphasize that the seedlings that are being provided, the hybrid seedlings that are being provided by the Cocoa Board are free. And so the farmers should take note of that. I've had incidences where a few unscrupulous officials have sold the seedlings to farmers. The seedlings are free.
These, he stressed, are aimed at maintaining the quality of Ghana's cocoa. He commended to posing confidence in the energy crisis. The company, which is among the top 3 buyers of Ghana's cocoa, is expected to not only add value to cocoa beans, but to create employment for the youth. Gifty Andopia, Joy News, Tema. Joy News Prime here on Joy News on Multi TV and also on ABN TV across Europe. We'll take a break here. Please don't go away. You're welcome back. Many thanks for staying. The local government ministry has begun a sensitization program targeted at addressing possible outbreak of cholera. The program focuses on clearing uncollected heaps of refuse from the central business district of Accra.
Last year, more than 100 people lost their lives as a result of a cholera outbreak. Some environmentalists had partly blamed the epidemic on filth that engulfed the city's market. Sector Minister Collins Dowd on Thursday night toured some markets and announced measures to prevent the recurrence of last year's cholera incidents.
What we have seen tonight is an improvement on what the situation was last year. And that is why I'm calling for the sustainability of this practice, so that at the end of every market day or every day in the evening, garbage is collected. We saw trucks located at vantage points where garbage were being collected and dumped into. That is a sign that we are ready to deal with the situation.
He added waste collectors should not have a problem with dump sites, as 2 landfill sites to be used as final disposal places have been acquired.
There we have in Sumia, and then we have the Pong site. We were at the final disposal site last week. As the first step, I wanted to make sure that we have prepared ourselves for the final disposal site. So I took a trip to the Pong landfill site to inspect whether we can accommodate the garbage that we generate in the city, and everything is in order.
Public education exercise targeting areas that record high cases of cholera will also begin soon.
Although a preventable medical condition, Ghana has for years battled to contain the spread of the disease, ranked by the Ghana Health Service facility data as the #1 cause of death. There are many theories and beliefs about how malaria is spread, but scientists say the mosquito is the sole transmitter of the disease. Persons with malaria are advised to get tested and treated, as malaria kills. Dr. Keziah Malm of the National Malaria Control Program says there is an increasing number of people using malaria interventions this year as compared to previous years.
If you look at the proportion of children under 5 who used ITNs, it's increased from around 4% in 2000 to about 58% in 2014. So more and more people are getting to use the interventions. But if you look at 58 and the target that we had set ourselves of about 80% in 2015, we still have a lot of work to do. So we still need to improve on our attitude, even using medications, taking IPTP, which is the intermittent preventive treatment in pregnant women, where SP is given. We still need to improve on our behavior to be able to meet the target that we have set ourselves. Malaria can kill, but malaria can be prevented and malaria can be controlled. So one, let's use the interventions that are known to be able to prevent malaria. ITNs, IPTP, seasonal malaria chemoprevention, indoor residual spraying. If we happen to have malaria, let's get tested and treated with the approved malaria medication, which is the artemisinin-based combination therapy. Even though malaria can be killed, I think we can defeat malaria by investing in the control of malaria.
Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture, Sherry Aite, has assured government plans to import fish feed to be sold to farmers at subsidized prices in a bid to boost aquaculture in the country. The need to rely more on fish caught in inland water bodies has become even more important due to what appears to be a stagnation in the marine caught fish. The sector minister says government appreciates the need to address the challenges of the sector and will take steps to address them and boost food security. Here is a report by emmanuel.atani.
Some 950,000 metric tons of fish is consumed in Ghana each year. Of that quantity, those caught at sea by local seafarers amounts to 400,000 metric tons, which means About 550,000 metric tons will have to be imported to supplement what is obtained locally. Though aquaculture has contributed significantly towards reducing the deficit and the pressure on marine natural resources, players in the industry say its potential is largely untapped, especially considering the country's climate and other factors are ideal for the cultivation of tilapia and many other fish species. The fish farmers, however, say they have challenges. Amongst them, the lack of readily available fingerlings and the standardized and affordable filleted fish feed. And employment generation and foreign exchange earnings for the country. But players in the industry have raised concerns. We will be speaking to some of them to get their point of view.
The cost of feed is our main problem. So we are pleading to the government if we can subsidize the price. Because as at now, because of the high price, we have reduced the number of fish we have to produce. So because of that, we have reduced the number of labor at the same time.
Sector Minister Sherry Aite acknowledges the challenges.
Those who bring in the fish pellets, charge exorbitant price, and that consumes all your operational costs. So I think on my last visit, during my last visit in Ashanti region, I realized that it's necessary that the ministry brings in bulk importation of fish pellets, because the farmers are willing to pay. And for the private sector, when they bring these pellets, they are zero rated. We apply for tax exemptions for them. But however, they continue to charge farmers exorbitant prices. So that is why the ministry, this is a short-term intervention, but we are discussing with the private sector to see whether we can get a second, fish feed processing plant in Ghana. We already have, a mini one in Elmina, the Elmina fish processing plant, and that will be commissioned in September.
Another challenge facing the farmers, according to Gabriel, is the production of healthy fingerlings, which Charles Asari, another fish farmer, blames on expired feed pellets.
Second challenge is the fingerlings. Sometimes those who give us the fingerlings doesn't give us the correct fingerlings. You feed them by the close of 6 months, which you have to harvest. You will not get anything. You lose.
The feed, sometimes the feed got spoiled before they brought it. And we Africans, when we get something from store, not all the time we expect the expiring dates. So I think that one also is another factor.
The minister acknowledges the intense pressure on the sector, but says there will be improvement soon.
First, we're going to bring on board 2 mobile laboratory services that we would deploy to concentrated areas of fish farming, so that we can provide them with the spot analysis and technical support to their business. And also, we have realized that we need to expand our hatchery to produce good quality, resilient, fingerlings. And in Ghana, we don't have a nursery. So we have also agreed that we will attach a nursery to one of our main hatcheries. We're going to update our hatcheries across the country. We have 4 hatcheries. We are going to update them, expand them, and then bring in better, equipment. And we have also selected some individual private farmers. We will help upgrade their hatcheries. And then from those zones, they can also supply good quality fingerlings.
As the global supply of wild-caught fish continues to decrease in the face of growing demand for fish, aquaculture remains key if the overexploited marine life is to be rehabilitated. Already, just under half of all fish that people consume come from aquaculture, which is one of the country's fastest growing animal food producing sectors. With the supply of wild-caught fish stagnant, aquaculture will have to augment any future increase in the country's fish consumption. This will also serve as an employment avenue for the rising number of unemployed youth in the country. Emmanuel reporting for Joy News.
Survivors of the mine accident at the Shanxi Mining Company at Bani in the Talensi district of the Upper East region have revealed that the accident was caused by a blast from a neighboring pit while they were working underground. The miners say their pit was engulfed by poisonous smoke soon after the blast, and they had to climb out as quickly as they could because they were suffocating. 3 of the miners, however, did not make it, whilst another 3 are currently on admission.
When the blast, the smoke just came. So when we are covered out to drive the motor, so we came in.
So when you came out, what happened next?
When we came out, they said they give us some medicine. That was to take ambulance. And we said we have to go to hospital. And they said they are going to bring the car. When they get inside, they just bring this one, example like this. They just bring that water for us. When we take that water first, and they give us Talensi. You have to take that Talensi. If something happens, then you should go to hospital. So that whatever you spend, they will pay.
Upper East Regional Crime Officer Superintendent Alex Asamoah-Frimpong confirmed the incident and said further investigations into the accident are ongoing.
About 5:50 p.m. the Shanxi Mining Company were in their normal operation. As a result of that, they did a blasting in one of the shafts, and then accidentally the smoke or the fume entered another shaft where the workers were working. So 17 workers inhaled fume or gas, let me put it that way. So they were removed from the shaft and then conveyed to the Bolga Regional Hospital. And when they got there, they were admitted. Whilst going treatments, 3 died at the hospital.
Meanwhile, authorities of the Shanxi Mining Company, where the accident occurred, have been calling on the workers to remain calm while they try to investigate the circumstances that led to the accident. Let's do something about food, because a food scientist at the University of Ghana has highlighted the dangers associated with food preservation as a result of the current energy crisis and strongly advised against a number of practices. According to Dr. Angela Pari Hansen Kunedu, contrary to popular belief, food kept in the refrigerator beyond 4 hours after a power outage is unsafe and must be discarded. Speaking at a Nutrition Day program by the Ghana Nutrition Association in Accra today, Dr. Kunedu warned a lot of food poisoning and diarrhea cases in the last few years of the energy crisis may be the result of people unknowingly eating unwholesome food. Hannah Odame has more.
One of the problems facing many homes in Ghana as a result of the energy crisis is food preservation. Many home keepers, such as Gifty Mensa, have their own way of assessing the wholesomeness of their foods.
When the power goes off, what I do with the items in my fridge, if there are some that I can keep them by heating, I do so. If I have to eat them too, because there are some food that can be eaten in cold form. So if it's like that, that's what I do. The last time that the light went off, the item that I had in my fridge was I could keep the fish up to the next morning and then use them. It nearly got spoiled, but I just tested it scientifically that I can eat it.
Food scientist Dr. Kunedu, however, says many homes, such as Gifties, are getting it wrong.
Generally, it's a bad practice. If you're going to keep food for 4 hours or above, make sure it's kept cold or it's kept hot. When the power is out and the temperature in refrigerators are well above 5 or even 7 degrees Celsius, it's not good to keep food in there for a long time. When you have temperature fluctuations within the danger zone for prolonged periods of time, especially about 4 hours and above, most of the time reheating food will not be adequate to kill the microorganisms that may be present. In some people, with perhaps depressed immune systems, they can experience some form of diarrhea. Others may not, but it does not mean that there are no microorganisms in there, but it's just that they may have a more robust immune system.
She offers tips on how best to keep foods, especially perishable ones, to avoid contamination.
Keep your refrigerator closed, your freezer closed. If you're going to keep food for a long time, or you know your power is going to be out for more than 24 hours, transfer the foods that you can to your freezer. Freeze water. When there's power outage, transfer some into your fridge. It will keep your refrigerator cool much longer. Repackage your frozen foods into single-use packs such that you avoid multiple freeze-thaw cycles. So you just take and you use all of it. Yes, so you don't use some and refreeze. That can also cause problems.
Speaking on the theme, food security and power crisis at the Nutrition Day program, Dr. Kunedu said the improper storage and handling of food, especially when the power goes off, has an effect after consumption. She mentioned there's been a sharp increase in the number of diarrhea cases reported in health facilities between 2010 and 2014. Incidents, she says, could be the direct result of people consuming unwholesome foods unknowingly. My name is Hannah Odame for Joy News.
And Abigail Adumakoinche is standing by with business news. Please stay with us.
Away from the maritime dispute to agriculture, Forum for Agriculture Research in Africa, FARA, has introduced a new research initiative to help double agriculture output in Africa with less resource. Executive Director of FARA, Yemi Akimbamijo, says Pro-Intense Africa, the new research initiative, is a way to go for increase food security in Africa by 2025.
Intense Africa is all about intensification of our production systems. And why is it becoming an issue for us at a time like this? The evidence before us is very clear. What we need to do to keep Africa food secure is first and foremost to produce twice the amount of food we are producing now, in line with the directives of our political leaders, doubling the total factor productivity by 2025. But the other side of the coin is that we need to provide twice as much with half the resources. So that is the situation we're confronted with.
Yemi Akimbamijo says if we fail to double agriculture production in Africa with less resource, we will continue to be a beggarly continent.
If we fail, we will simply continue the status quo. And the status quo, for your information, is that we are spending about $50 billion to buy food on the continent. That is not sustainable because that's money that we do not have.
Agric Minister Fifi Kwete, who lost FARA's initiative, pledged government support.
Some of this transformation is not going to come because somebody needs to, let's say, increase his farm from, let's say, a 10-acre to a 20-acre. I mean, even with a 10-acre or even a 1 or 2 acres, if you are able to have, for example, high-yielding seeds, that gives you 5 times more than what you were. That's 5 times more income for you. That means you are expanding your production, you are getting much more profit, and that's the way to go.
As always, a pleasure bringing you business news. My name is Abigail Adumakoinchi. George Adu Jr. comes up next with sports. Do stay.
Well, definitely the great games to look ahead to the First Capital Plus Premier League, and 5 derbies will dominate week 14 of the First Capital Plus Premier League, with the Mancha derby between former league champions Hearts of Oak and Great Olympics at the Crossport Stadium. Chief of them, Olympics, despite a bad start to the season, have fortified their squad with 3 veteran players in Godwin Atram, Richard Olele Kinsting and Dan Quay. However, the Phobians are in ominous form after 3 wins in a row in the League and CAF Confederations Cup. But Director of Great Olympics, Fred Papo, has called the bluff of their rivals.
They are not in that kind of form.
Well, that's what their coach is saying.
They can say it to satisfy themselves. They are not in any form. We don't respect any form of Accra Suffolk. There's a good opposition. We know that it's not a small club, it's a big club, but they shouldn't go around bragging that they are in the form of their lives. They are not in any form. Complete the Kumasi business. We are coming to complete it in Accra. We have an incomplete project on our hands, and we have to complete it in Accra. Suffer for it.
So how many goals are you targeting?
No, I don't predict goals. I'm not usually into prediction of goals, but at the end of the day, you see, we'll be going with our 3 points. Adding up a lot. Apart from, I look at it even more from their influence off the field. You know, at training in the camp and the rest, the boys really look up to them. They are relating so well with the boys, and they teach them a lot. They give them quite some inspiration, and that for me is highly commendable.
So let's have a look at the other fixtures in week 14 of the First Capital Plus Premier League. I told you about 5 derbies. So here they are then. Hazakas Media Master, Western Derby out there. That game is going to be played out there at the Secondary Stadium. Adriano Stars Pechame, it's Bono Derby in the Bronga Hafo region. Bronga Hafo, that's BA Stars, also have a game out there. And that's also certainly another derby with Brickham Chelsea. Great Olympics, Hartlepool, just told you about that. Heart Alliance, Liberty Professionals, Inter Allies, Wafa will also be playing that as well. We have Niwe Dubiase, Santik Kotoko. That's an Ashanti Derby, of course. And then the final game, Wild Stars up against Ashanti Gold in all of that. Now time to talk about the UEFA Champions League. Barcelona have been drawn against Pep Guardiola's Bayern Munich in the Champions League semi-finals. The other last 4 see Juventus, get into their first semi-final since 2003, and they'll be facing Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid, the defending champions. The first legs will be played on the 5th and 6th of May, with the return matches a week later. That's the 12th and 13th. So there we have it. Real Madrid on course to look for their 11th title, and even win this, they have been able to do that back-to-back. Big one to extend. The first game is against Juventus, and Barcelona will do that against Bayern Munich, with a lot of revenge written on the minds of Bayern Munich after they lost heavily to Barcelona out there. Barcelona lost heavily to Bayern Munich in that one as well. Weekend of derbies, and we just can't wait for it. That'll be all for sports tonight. I'm George Adder Jr. Gifty will join us with some more. You have a good night.
Let's do some international news now. South African-owned shops in Malawi have remained closed after calls for a boycott from activists angered at recent xenophobic attacks. In the commercial capital, Blantyre, armed police guarded several leading South African chain stores. Several hundred Malawians have been evacuated from South Africa after the recent wave of xenophobic violence. At least 7 people have been killed and 5,000 left homeless since the attacks started last month. The Somali Islamist movement Al-Shabaab has for the first time publicly killed a man for, quote, insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Witnesses have told the BBC this. Crowds watched as the man was shot by a firing squad in the southern town of Jamam in the lower Juba region. Report says Al-Shabaab have previously killed people accused of spying or apostasy. Last month, Al-Shabaab carried out an attack on Garissa College in neighboring Kenya, killing 148 people. The Islamist group controls large swaths of rural Somalia. And that's it for international news.
International news was brought to you by...
Pressure group Occupy Ghana has condemned the recent distribution of envelopes to journalists by the Chief of Staff, Julius Debra, after an event he organized at the Flagstaff House. The group has thrown a challenge to the president to take a bold decision and publicly condemn the incident and rebuke the Chief of Staff in no uncertain or unqualified terms. The call follows the brouhaha generated by the 1,000 Ghana cedis said to have been offered to journalists and senior editors. According to the group, considering the number of journalists present, it has been estimated that nearly 100,000 Ghana cedis was handed out. In a statement issued in Accra, the group called on President Mahama to make a public announcement that henceforth there will be no distribution of monies or any other forms of inducement to any person at any state function. Occupy Ghana is also asking the president to put measures in place that will punish state officials who flout this directive if he should make it. To erase the growing perception that the office of the president is among one of the most corrupt public institutions in the country. That's it for the bulletin. Out of stories again. 10-member Electoral Reform Committee proposes presidential elections are held a month earlier on November 7. Food scientist is cautioning many Ghanaians may be unknowingly consuming unwholesome foods in their own homes as a result of the energy crisis. Meanwhile, members of the public have expressed frustrations over the unending energy crisis and what they describe as government's seeming lack of urgency to tackle the situation. Also, 3 persons have died in a mining accident at Bani in the Upper East region. That's more news at myjoyonline.com and multitvworld.com. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. Up next is PM Express with Nana and Sakwal. Please stay tuned.
This is Joy News Prime.